Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us here at PastView. In today's webinar, we're going to be looking at managing and publishing educational archives. So we'll be diving into best practices for preservation, digitization, and digital access. I'll be your host for today's session. My name is Paul Marks. I'm the marketing manager here at PastView. And we're joined here today by my colleagues. So we have Casper Smithson, Chief Operating Officer, John Wallace, Account Manager, and Nathanael, Account Manager here at PastView. And they will be running through these points on our agenda. So firstly, caring for educational records. Secondly, digitizing and structuring collections. Thirdly, we'll jump into a live demo of PastView. And then we'll be looking at publishing and access with PastView. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Casper Smithson.
Thanks, Paul. Great to see everyone today, and thanks for jumping on and listening to some of the presentation we've got here for the educational sector. So, PastView's been working with the educational sector for many years now, and over this time we've learned a lot of valuable lessons in the projects that we work on. And these particular projects that we've worked on, we're looking and focusing at the educational archives and some of the different content and material that you hold. So a lot of the time there's different values and different reasons why our customers are working with us to publish and digitize their collections. And this sometimes includes things like the student admissions and achievements, to staff history and institutional memory, and community heritage as well. So through digitization, we can obviously preserve the collections for future internal operations like marketing, celebrating anniversaries, and alumni engagement. And also then we've got the ability and functionality to publish that content onto internal or public facing portals, which we'll showcase through a demo later on. So next slide. So the challenge that a lot of our clients face within the educational sector is certainly around damaged materials, and that's one of the first areas that we wanted to chat about before taking you into the digitization side of things. So all of our projects start with the preservation need, and secondly to that is then the access and discovery, being able to make those magazines or books keyword searchable, identifying people in photographs and so on. But firstly, it starts with the preservation need. We've recently been speaking with an organisation that had a lot of flood damaged materials. Those are unfortunately no longer accessible, and we now have to go through a conservation need at sort of great cost and expense to be able to digitise and work with that content. So there is a real challenge here that a lot of educational archives firstly struggle with in terms of the ability to be able to store their archives in secure and safe places to stop against things like floods and fires and so on. But then also that ability to be able to actually preserve the content so that people aren't sort of paging through those individual logbooks or registers, so that the content can be preserved in that nature as well. Often it's very difficult to find the information as well. So through digitization, and as John's going to come on to in a moment, we can obviously digitize the content and be able to produce a lot of finding aids so that we can help with your archivists or marketing teams or others amongst the school to be able to identify content quickly and easily, and then actually expand that out to your audiences through researchers, alumni, and other interested individuals through the networks there. Thanks. So just taking a good look at some of the sort of recommendations around what makes for good storage and obviously handling practices. So as a digitization vendor, we specialize in the sort of secure handling of archive materials, ensuring best practice for the handling of those archives. So some of these initiatives that we use and sort of rules that we have within our studio and publishing side of things is obviously clean hand policies, making sure that documents are handled in a secure and safe way. The document sort of pages are turned and supported throughout the process during digitization, and also throughout their actual use within search rooms or the archive. strictly no food and drink nearby, so anything that's going to cause damage to those individual records. Use of pencils for examples rather than pens, and obviously handling those documents very secure, securely through the digitization and access process. So, for example, handling just the sort of edges of photographs, potentially wearing sort of white glove treatment, and being able to manage the content depending on its how stable that content is at that point. Also around the provisions around the actual storage conditions of archives, it would be amazing to have state-of-the-art archive conditions throughout with temperature controlled and things like that, and not all sort of archives benefit from that technology at great expense. So just being able to keep this material in a sort of secure and stable environment with temperature and humidity that's monitored and is at consistent levels. Clean storage areas, sort of dust freeze, trying to avoid basements where they're prone and likely to be flooding, and then also attics and spaces and things like that, where obviously then they get severe temperatures as well from that side. So just sort of being mindful of your archives, their storage requirements, and specifically around different formats as well. We find ourselves sort of looking at audio-visual collections that potentially degrade over time with mold and other issues around that sort of format. So making sure that that content is stored in a sort of suitable environment so that it can be preserved and taken forward for digitization. So just next slide. And just finally, I think we've touched on a few bits of this as well, but just things to look out for within your collection. So obviously trying to prioritize archives isn't just around what's required sort of most internally. So it's also about preservation needs as well. So just look out for things like tears and water damage, mold, specifically mold. It can be very problematic from a digitization standpoint. Obviously with water damage and other damages to archives, it can cause things like the ink fading and therefore loss of information over time in that side, and obviously binding sort of deterioration as well. If they're quite actively used, the materials, then obviously just trying to potentially keep multiple copies or be able to keep an archive copy of that sort of annual magazine or anything like that, so that you've got a copy that would be suitable for longer term from there as well. I think that sort of concludes on the preparation for digitization. So I'm going to hand things over to John and pass over for what to look for and the processes for digitization. Thanks.
Thanks, Casper. So what I'm going to talk about is how we actually digitize collections. First of all, digitizing a collection is a lot more helpful if we have some kind of registry or some kind of spreadsheet of what we're actually looking at. It's any kind of records that identify the items that we're about to digitize so that we can start to structure our archive will be really helpful. Turning collections into digital assets is basically done in 5 steps by us. First of all, we'll organize the assets, and that means we'll put them into categories. We'll organize negatives and film, photos into sizes, handwritten and typed documents into batches, and books and ledgers into batches as well. And what we'll then do is we'll uplift the collection using our dedicated courier. They'll come to your location in their van. We'll box all the items up into banker's boxes or appropriate storage and take them back to our facility in Kettering. Or conversely, we can digitize on site as well if there is space and the requirements there as well. That's digitizing on site's quite handy if you need to access the collection continuously. We can be digitizing while staff are accessing materials at the same time. How we digitize is we digitize each item using high resolution cameras. We digitize it each page of a book, each image, each negative, using high-res cameras that give us an archival image and an archival standard image at the end, usually a 16-bit TIFF file. We also from this derive JPEGs, and later down the track, if we're digitizing documents, we turn them into PDFs. What we'll also do is we'll capture the data that travels with these items as well, either it be a naming convention or a numbering convention, so that later we can relate it back to the database once we get them online. And then we'll structure the collection. So for schools, it's usually based on a student's first and last name, with each bit of data relating back to that student. In other institutions, that can be related to something else. But for schools, we found that most of our customers want to use the students' first and last names. We have clients who have multi-generational students, so they'll have multiple students from the same family going through the institution. So they like to group families together. We also have some clients who have rather famous students who go through, who would like to call them out to prospective new students. But structuring collections, usually we start with one name, and then all our documents and all our assets related to that one name will be pointed back to it. Next slide there, Paul. Thank you. Okay, so organisation before digitisation. As I mentioned, we group our records by type. We have some basic cataloguing, which may already exist in your system. You may already have Excel. You may already have lists that we can use, and you may already have your numbering system ready to go. All these are really, really helpful, and it helps us relate it back to the original analog archive structure. Next slide. Thanks, Paul. Okay. Before scanning, again, we organize, we identify our fragile items. Now, Casper mentioned that works at risk. It's quite important to identify them before we start the digitization process. Some fragile items will need to be prepared differently before we digitize. We'll need to make them stable before we can actually photograph them. We will then prepare the collections and prioritize the records. As an institution, you may want to prioritize certain records over others. For example, some institutions want to prioritize final exam results over any other information. Some organizations want to prioritize sports results and sports photos over any other kind of records. But we'll work with you to make sure we work to your priorities and make sure we organize the digitization and scanning effort to do those things first before we move down into the things of lesser priority. Next slide. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so what are we going to scan? Well, we're going to scan admission registers, logbooks, staff records, reports and correspondence with photographs, and later we'll talk about extracting text from photographs, but particularly sports photographs, end of year photographs, class photographs, photographs that have text on them that identify people in them are always incredibly important, and always what alumni are looking to get off you. So you might have someone who went to the school years ago who has lost all their photographs and may want to get copies of them for sentimental purposes. This is something you can offer either as a free of charge, or you could even charge it and make that a revenue stream for the school. Also, staff portraits and key events, incredibly important for the history of the school, and particularly for anniversaries and for key milestones of the school's history. Next slide. So managing collections in PastView, I'll throw over to Casper now.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. So as John's taking you through there, obviously the preparation and the digitization vitally important for this process. And now what we're going to take a look at, and I'm going to sort of warm things up for Nathaniel's demo shortly, is behind the scenes look at PastView, which is the product and service that we offer to the education sector for managing and publishing their collections online. So PastView is an online hosted platform. It's a content management system, digital asset management system, and has the functionality to be able to build collections, structure content, and be able to upload and edit new and existing content on the system. It's designed with two sort of key purposes that we often talk about. One of which is to promote excellent search, so the ability to be able to search across the entirety of your digital archives and be able to return one result. And we can come on to how we look at doing that throughout our presentation in terms of the system. And the second one is to replicate the physical item as closely as we can in a digital environment. So we'll showcase some amazing technologies like page turn, deep zoom, magnification, and other such technologies as well, so that you can experience those assets in a very engaging way in there. So in terms of how we actually process this content into PastView, we've got a data engineering team and a web design team that can work with you. Normally, our clients will typically have a very large set of digital data already, perhaps from school photographers or other sort of channels of data coming into the archive and coming into the school collections. So typically, our team would then upload that content. We'd extract the metadata that John was talking about in terms of tagging pupils, looking at what exists within that information, if there's years, or we can identify what house this is, for example, or any information of that nature. Then we want to be able to organize and structure this data using the metadata into a really sort of seamless way, so that your team, both internally and publicly, can view that content and search it. And then it comes the publishing. So by publishing, we don't necessarily mean publicly. It can be internally, it can be through monetization, it could be through a sort of membership alumni area, so that you can engage with your users in that way as well. Or it could be a combination of all of those different options. So Nathaniel's preparing for a demonstration, and we'll be able to show you a couple of those examples in a moment. So in terms of managing the collections, we've gone through quite a bit of this in the last slide, but in terms of the structure of this, then it's sort of imperative in terms of the organizational collection structure. Typically speaking, a lot of our clients work with sort of setting the collections up in a similar way to their physical archive. So typically we'd have magazines, audio-visual, we'd have photographs, and then those photographs would be subgrouped into rugby or sports, perhaps events, other key anniversaries, and then within the sporting there'd be hockey and rugby and golf and so on. So you can start creating and developing this collection structure that then helps users, public or private, to then be able to search and browse that content and engage with your archives from there. In terms of what we then do with that data, there's a lot of exciting tools that we've got within the system. And coming back to our sort of two principles about making this data as searchable as possible, we're utilizing a lot of automatic descriptioning tools, so machine learning and AI, being able to add things like name-based searching, date filtering, connecting those records. So John mentioned siblings that attend the school, so we can sort of connect those two siblings together, for example, and then link them to all of their sports photos and also their exam results, for example. So there's a lot of different mechanisms that we can sort of link the records and pupils together. And also then the research access, so being able to provide that accessibility to the content and to the collections through front-facing portals and websites that are branded and designed in line with your college, school, with your organization from there. So that's all sort of possible within that side. And we've got some really exciting tools as well within PastView. Some of these are quite typical that you'd find within an archiving solution, like your optical character recognition. But the wonderful thing with PastView is bringing that search and the display together. And in this particular example, what you can see here and what Nathanael will come on to in a moment is this actually utilizing PastView's Book Explorer, so 360 page turn, with the ability to actually then highlight the text on words and then use our loop tool to be able to explore that information further and sort of zooming in to that content. One of the really sort of interesting ones that we've released sort of more recently is handwritten text recognition. So any handwritten records, maybe you've got staff registers, maybe even diaries or other sort of information that's kept in a handwritten form, then we can also do exactly the same through our technology. So we upload all of the data into the PastView system. Our system then generates all of these automatic sort of finding aids, things like facial recognition, for example. So if you know and you can identify that one individual within the collection, then the system can go and look across all of your other content, all of the magazines, all of the photographs, and try to identify that individual in other examples as well. So a really good way to be able to put your data up into the system and then be able to let it do all of the sort of, some of the hard work in terms of using the metadata and finding from there. And then you'll be able to both internally use that in a much quicker way, be able to search for content, retrieve content quickly, but then also go on to actually publish that publicly through there. So I think final slide here just reviews through some of the different mechanisms that we can publish content. And then no better way than showing you a live example of this. So I'm going to pass straight across to Nathanael for a live demonstration. But the three options that we do have on these, again, is the private access, the public access, and obviously member access, so for alumni and so on. And you can pre-select those on different basis. So maybe magazines want to be publicly accessible, whereas photographs want to be only accessible to the alumni. So over to you, Nathanael, for the demo.
Thank you, Casper. Yeah, like Casper mentioned, I'll go over some of the features that he just talked about. Firstly, about the different access types. You'll see that PastView can be a fully public website, where accessed by the public, and all your collections can be public and accessed. Or you can have it fully private, where maybe through a login or some kind of sign-in that you can only use by the internal team. And then thirdly, you can have a mix of both. So you can have certain areas or certain membership areas that can be accessed only for specific people, like the Lutheran Society here. You can see they have this public area here for their magazines, but they also have, if they're going to here, they'll have a membership and alumni area, which I can't access. So they have a special collection for that. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the kind of different types of material that PastView can host and can upload. So we'll jump to this website, which is the Institute of Mechanical Engineers, which hosts a number of different types of materials. Firstly, we have objects. So if I come to here and I go into object, then PastView can host 360 objects like this, and you can view them by spinning them like this. Second is any books or any volumes that you might have that you want to for the 360 page channel that Casper mentioned. You'll see here that looks just like a book. You can turn it like this through an arrow, or you can actually click at the bottom and drag it, which I don't think I can right now. There we go. Oh, there we go. Sometimes the words might be too small and maybe you can't see it, so you can actually enable this magnifying glass to view a bit closer up as well. And then we can click here and actually look at the metadata for each of the pages as well. Here you go. So another of the viewing is for photographs. So this is just your basic kind of grid viewer, and you can look at the photos individually like this as well, and you can see the metadata right next to it. What makes this so good is actually the next part, which is the search side of things. So searching once we have the metadata in and everything's uploaded, then we can actually search and filter through the metadata that you have. So if we look at this HSBC website here, they can actually search by different ranges of years, different subjects, different banks, countries, cities. So this can all be customized, and it depends on what metadata scheme you're using, or kind of what filters and what attributes that you want to use to filter this. And if I just come back onto the Institute of Mechanical Engineers here, I can come onto this council minutes, and actually what they've done in here is use HTL, which is the handwritten text transcription. So I can come to here and click on this and enable text. Oh, maybe not this one then. Oh, I think it's this one here. I can come into here and I can actually toggle this on, and now all the handwritten text is now selectable and searchable. So this creates a transcript into the metadata, and I can actually use this now to search within this collection or outside of the collection throughout different collections. So if I just search a simple thing like London here, then now that comes up with 72 search results, and I can just go through these and look for where it mentions London, where it has been transcribed. Or I can actually go out of it and search. If I search London right here instead, I can search for all of the council minutes, and then it comes up with all the results that has the word London. So this can be done for any typed text or any handwritten text as well. What we can also do actually is, the next thing is actually searching for people. So Casper mentioned earlier about the data side of things, and here is an example of what we call an entity, or it can be a person or place, or an object, anything like that. But this creates a kind of profile, it's like a profile where maybe for this person, Thomas Field, which now we can kind of create a profile, and then you'll have his information and then any images that are tagged and related to him. So now I can actually go onto this person and see in every image that he's part of. And I'll just comment here, and then it will take me right there. There we go. And the third kind of searching and transcription we have is the audio-visual transcription, which I can show you here. I'm not sure if you can hear the audio. So I can see here that he says photography. Okay. So now all of this transcription is in the metadata and searchable as well. I can select, when I upload onto PastView, it actually detects how many speakers there are, and I can actually go into the backend side of it and name the different speakers. So we've actually named these already. So if I go backwards and I'm going to search now photography. So there we go, it's come up. And if I click this, it should take me right to this place where he says it in the audio. There we go. There we go. So these are the kind of different transcriptions we have, which can now be used to search and make everything more accessible and easier to find. And we go into Radley College Archive here. They have a selection of all these different kinds of materials. So it's not just about hosting one set of material, but you can have all these kinds of collections that you want to show on here. And what I'll show actually is here. Sorry. So what you can actually see is we can actually, if there's things that maybe you're worried about people downloading or taking photos or screenshots of the images that you upload, you can actually apply watermarks onto these photos or any of their collections, and we can apply that directly through PastView for you as well. And I think that's really it for a lot of the features that we have, and there's a lot more we can show you, and we can run a more in-depth demo one day as well. I'll pass you back to Paul.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Nathanael. And thank you to Casper and John as well. That obviously does bring us to the end of today's session. So a big thank you to you for joining us. If you'd like to get in touch, maybe discuss a project with us, here's how we can get started. So you can either send an email through to hello@pastview.com. You can visit the website at pastview.com. And if you're viewing on a laptop or a desk monitor, then you can aim your mobile phone at that QR code and that will take you straight through to our Contact Us page. Hope the session's been helpful and useful for you. And as I say, if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us here at PastView. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.